I don't think they're going to do it on the basis that it is too big a thing to fuck about with. The consequences would be absolutely enormous. Price at the value of land would fall. You're talking about debt to equity ratios, the ability for farmers to borrow, all this sort of stuff would just be thrown all up in the air. And it's too. It's like the housing market. It's too big a thing to fuck about with.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Farming Funny. I hope you've all been enjoying the recent content that we've been putting out there. Today we have the infamous wannabe Amazon salesman, Sandy Kirkpatrick.
Good evening,
Sandy,
gentlemen.
give us a big shout out to all your listeners and your top listener, Farm Theory. Big thumbs up. Thanks for listening.
Thumbs up. Three thumbs up.
3 thumbs up, no bother.
Yeah, there we go.
And our other gentleman that we have on the podcast with us tonight is Mr. Newton Stewart, Nick Thompson.
Gentleman's pushing it a bit, Jim, isn't it?
Well, he doesn't look in the best of fettle, so I just thought, don't poke the bear.
I'm in good fettle. I'm just tired.
Well, he's recovering, Jim. He's coming the this week.
Recovering from a hard lambing and a hard gammon.
Recovering from a long, good summering. That's what I'm recovering from.
A good old summering.
Yeah.
But you were in a fight this week, Nick, weren't you?
Oh, I was really, really stupid. Yeah, so I mean, it's such a easy thing to avoid, but basically, like all stock farmers, we've got a race, big race with a crush at the end. So it's meant to be safe, so that when you're working with cattle, you're not in amongst it, and they should flow through it, and you should be able to work with them safely. We've got a wee kind of passengers gate halfway along that you kind of use to go in if something's turned around the wrong way, or push them up, or if the vet's there to, do whatever it needs to do. So there's a wee gate there. Anyway, we brought in some calves to castrate them and dehorn them, and I couldn't see one. So the gate is steel, and it's attached to a steel frame, and basically I opened the gate, and for some unbeknown reason, I stuck my head through the gap to have a look. I didn't think to put my body or anything like that. Just stuck my head through the gap. And at that exact time, the calf ran at the gate and smashed the gate against my head. Well, crushed my head between the gate and the frame of the door as well. So it was metal on metal with the calf one side and my head in the middle. So I lost a wee bit of consciousness for a couple of minutes. Went to the hospital. I just had a concussion. I had to have a CT scan and all that, but just a bit of a bad condition and a sore head and a wee bit of an embarrassed face.
Were you working on your own? Was there anyone else there?
No, my dad had gone to get the worming stuff. Was it the worming stuff? He'd gone to get, the irons doing the horns, and there's a wee lad there who was just standing behind me. We were just waiting on Dad, and I was trying to get these calves sorted out. So, yeah, no, he was there, but I don't really remember what happened. Bit stupid.
Jesus.
Really stupid.
Lessons learned there, Nick. But to be fair...
My mum and my wife, both thought it was very funny. Both had the same comment. After I had the CT scan, they both said, "Oh, well, we're just amazed that there's a brain in there." So that was very amusing from both of them. And very sympathetic.
It's good to hear that they were sympathetic.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
The thing about it, and the thing I don't really... Oh, sorry, no, I do get. Like, everybody rants on about health and safety. Everybody rants on about it. Massive thing in the industry, and for good reason, because stuff like this, and you know, it's lucky that you weren't hurt too badly. But everybody does it. Everybody does it. Everybody cuts corners. Everybody just to get a job done, you'll do stuff that you shouldn't really do. But when you're working on your own, or when you're up against it and all that sort of stuff, these things do happen. Like, I learned the other day that according to the health and safety executive, you're not meant to have anybody. So a child under the age of 13 is not allowed in a tractor cab. That's what health and safety say. And a lot of people say, oh, but it's safer for them to be in the cab than it is for them to be outside. But apparently that's not the case. And they say that you're not allowed to have a child under the age of 13 in a tractor cab. But how many people do it?
I think they'll say that, but then, your argument of it's better inside than outside, but they'll say, no, they shouldn't be there at all.
Exactly.
They say, but
but everybody does it. I used to do it when I was, I remember when my dad used to cart silage in a Massey 165. I used to stand in the back axle when he was going down the road. A wee 5-ton phaser trailer on the back. Happy days,
Yeah, we had. I'm just going to touch on it. We had a bit of an incident, not in our area, up in north of Aberdeenshire, a couple of years ago. You'll probably have read about it. A farmer's daughter was out watching the grain drill working in the field. She went to take a video, and I think she walked around the machine, and partly went to climb up into the cab, but obviously the guy was looking at the right-hand side and fell off the steps and went through the power harrow. So Jesus Christ. You can see how so quickly it goes wrong, and I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm like, I got up to some serious nonsense up at my uncle's farm in Fraserburgh when I was younger. I mean, looking back on it, was outrageous. But that was just the thing. But I think in my area and in my line of work, in terms of this, the kit's getting always bigger. Everything's getting faster. You're moving at faster paces. We're lifting potatoes faster than we ever did. You weigh up the pros and cons. Don't get me wrong, I love having my nephew out in the combine with me. I love it. And I can't wait to have Max with me out in the combine and in the sprayer and stuff like that. But it only takes one tiny thing. And, combines, stories you've heard of combines.
Oh, aye.
Like, pulling switches and the header's going on and somebody's gone through the guts of a combine. Even, I think one of the things I think is actually very dangerous is dogs in loader tractors. Because there's a story again from like 20, 30 years ago. A farmer up in Aberdeenshire was dropped the bale, reversed back, took the spike out the bale, went to cut the wrap off of it. Before you knew it, spike, man, bale, because there was a dog in the cab, had hit the forward lever on the tractor.
Jesus Christ.
So it's like tiny little things like that, and it's like...
Do you know, I heard a stat, I think it was actually yesterday, I don't know where the hell I heard it might have been on TikTok or something like that, but apparently one person dies on a farm every 2 weeks in the UK.
Is that through accidents, or is that suicide as well?
I have no idea, but I just heard it and thought, Jesus Christ. Because we, to be fair, in the last 4 or 5 years, in our area, Castle Douglas area, there's 3 well-known people that have died through accidents on the farm.
That's right.
Do you know what I mean? So, I mean, and and all different, completely different accidents, and it happens all the time. So yeah, it's bloody. Yeah, the problem I find is because you're doing like for you, James, especially, but because you're doing the same job year in, year out, and you're doing it like during lambing time, you're doing it for a long time, or during silage, you're doing it for a long time, whatever that. It's that you've done it so many times that you stop thinking about doing it. It's kind of happening automatically.
You get complacent.
And that's complacency, and that's when accidents happen. In my head.
Definitely. I mean, the three most dangerous industries in the UK are forestry, farming, and fishing. The three Fs.
Aye.
And unfortunately, health and safety can't really come down too hard on it, because if we had protocols in place of exactly what needs to be done, you wouldn't get out the bit. You know what I mean? If you actually had to comply with the regulation, I don't think you wouldn't get anything done for the day.
No.
And the cost involved with all that.
Well, this is the thing, because you look at the construction industry, and the HSE have come down massively hard on that, and rightly so, because the accidents on construction sites are pretty horrendous. They've vastly reduced them, but you know, the financial cost and the regulations and all the stuff that they've got to do in terms of putting kickboards on scaffolding, and you know, you've got to have ladders tied up and all this kind of stuff. It's it's a huge amount of work.
With construction, everyone's a specialist in something. Do you know what I mean? You've got brickies, or you've got scaffolders, or you've got electricians. So, like, they're specially trained in what they do. Stock farmers, and I mean, you know, it's probably across all different types of farming, but especially stock farming, we're doing so many different jobs. Do you know what I mean? Like, we're fencing, we're working with sheep, we're doing tractor work. You know, like, I mean, the list goes on and on and on. Like, we're not really specialists at anything, like, especially what we do. Like, every week we're doing something completely different. So if you had to have all the health and safety and all that stuff like that, I mean, as Jum says, you know, wouldn't they get anything done?
You wouldn't. But I think part of the problem is as well the fact that you're working alone a lot of the time. Because our neighbour in the hill farm, he's a guy who, I mean, he's walked those hills for 40 odd years, if not longer, ever since he was a boy. And I think it must have just been before COVID. It was about 6 years ago. He was out gathering sheep with his son, but his son went one hill and he went the other. And in the split of a second, as I say, a guy who knew the hill at the back of his hand, bike flipped over, rolled him all the way down to the bottom of the hill, and he had a spinal injury, couldn't move, and he was stuck there. And he was about 4 miles from anywhere. And his son eventually, after about an hour, I think it was one of those like classic Lassie sort of incidents. The dog decided to bugger off and go and find his son, and the son was like, right, okay, someone's not right here, and he went back and found him, and they had to get an air ambulance and lift him from the hill and took him to Glasgow Royal. But someone with like tons of experience, knew the land at the back of his hand, and just quick as that, he was over, and he was he was lucky not to be in a wheelchair.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
It happens.
There you go. It does. Anyway, that's a somber thought for your for your Tuesday night.
I mean, to be fair, you know, Sandy wanted to talk about the budget tonight, so actually, to be fair, that was probably more exciting than talking about the budget.
I'm just teeing you up here, Nick. We're gonna get stuck into the budget, my boy. Well, sorry, not necessarily. We're not getting into tax implications or what Rachel Reeves is thinking. But big question to you both: Do you think agricultural tax relief is going to go? Do you think they're going to abolish it?
Well,
thoughts in the back of the postcard, both of you.
I would say, with sane thinking folk, then no, because the down the line implications are colossal for UK agriculture.
Correct.
But with the way that comments are coming out, i.e., putting up employers' national insurance contribution because bosses of companies don't usually work. If you are along that train of thought, nothing would surprise me. You know, so does anybody know, like, when you're, you know, borrowing money from the bank, you know, you usually have a gearing ratio. You know, they don't like to lend. You know, I think it's over 25. Yeah, 25% to your total value.
The value that, yeah.
And the government are no different. They're they're a business, so they've got assets and all that sort of stuff. What do you think the government's debt to asset ratio is? What percentage of debt against the total value of the government's assets? What do you think? What do you think it is percentage-wise?
About 85%.
This 22 billion that they keep
Oh,
going on
that.
about. Yeah, they keep going on about this black hole of 22 billion, right? Just to put it into context, after World War II, our debt that we borrowed for World War II was 50 billion. Back in 1946. So, what do you think it is in a percentage?
I don't know. 5.
Take a stab at it. 5%, Nick. What do you think percentage was?
1.
0.18%. So not even 0.2%, 0.18%. And they are wanting to try and, well, first of all, they're the cause of an extra 9 billion on top of that, because of all the, the increases to the public service that they've paid. They also come off the back of COVID, where people got paid to basically sit about and do nothing. Part of me wonders why they're not going after them rather than the easy targets. But if agricultural rate relief goes, there's multiple knock-on effects. I mean, you're talking about suicide in agriculture. You watch that figure skyrocket because people will be devastated about having to pay a tax. Now, I think it's absolutely criminal that you're trying to do a job like farming, provide the nation with food, and you are handing down the business which has been handed down and handed down and handed down, and then you potentially have to go and pay 30 to 40% on the value to stand still. I honestly, it boils my blood that people out there can just write rules, whatever they want, and put it in place just to suit their narrative. I find it, to play with something so mega like this can't just be up to a party to say that's what they're doing. And then, because if it goes Pete Tong, it goes Pete Tong, and you can't recover it. Once it's done and it's set in stone for 4 years, you can't recover it. You can't all of a sudden go, Tories or Reform or whoever gets in and go, all right, you know what, guys, we'll give you all that back. You can't, it's unrecoverable. So not just farms, but the whole rural countryside will almost disappear, because you look at all the secondary business that farming families and contribute to the rural economies. Like, this is a disaster of epic proportion if they bring this in.
I think, I don't think they're going to do it. I think it's, it's been floated around and it's been, skirting about the outside and whatever else. I don't think they're going to do it on the basis that it is too big a thing to fuck about with. The consequences would be absolutely enormous. Price that the value of land would fall. You're talking about debt to equity ratios, the ability for farmers to borrow, all this sort of stuff would just be thrown all up in the air. And it's it's like the housing market. It's too big a thing to fuck about with. And in another sort of scenario or analogy, it's like during the financial crisis of 2008, the government said, well, actually, no, I will let RBS fail. It's too big a thing to fuck about with, and therefore I don't think they're going to do it. On the flip side of that is,
do you not think they might dip their toe in the water? Do you not think they might dip their toe in the water and see what happens?
Well, the thing about it is, on the flip side of what I've just said, it's exactly what happened after the First World War and led to the downfall of all these big, massive estates, like landed gentry, the upper class, and where you were taxed 90% of the value of your estate or whatever it was back then to fund the war. And that's why a lot of these big estates had to sell off so much land to be able to pay that debt on inheritance. So it has been done before, albeit in a slightly different guise, to fund a world war. I still do think, in the balance of it, it's too big a thing to fuck about with, and I think they won't do it.
I
Nick?
would love to share your optimism.
I think
I might
first of
stand
all,
corrected in 10 days' time, but there we go.
The closest thing these guys are to a root vegetable is a neep. So, you know, I'd love to, honestly, some of the stuff they've come away with, I'm just like, what? Really? Where did you get your degree? In a Kinder Egg? But anyway, sorry, there you go. Sorry, Nick.
oh, sorry. No, I mean, I think first and foremost, there's no smoke without fire. I also think they seem to be trying to fuck agriculture in every way possible. So it wouldn't actually surprise me whatsoever if they did go down this road. I think it would cause probably the biggest uprising of farm. Maybe it's what we need as farmers is to get us out of seats and fighting for what we're doing. Because I think if it does happen, there'd be serious uprising. Because I mean, as you say, my business, for instance, if my dad handed it down to me and then I had to pay 40% of it back to the government, I mean, there wouldn't be a business.
No.
Like game over. So, and I mean, I'd class ourselves as a kind of medium-sized enterprise. So, you know, for the smaller enterprises and medium-sized enterprises, I just don't think they would exist at all. But maybe that's what they want. Maybe they want to get rid of the small guys and turn them into bigger businesses. I don't know. As Jum said, I think it would be an
But the large boys would just suffer just the same because they've got more value.
Yeah, I know. But
do you not think there'd be a workaround? If not necessarily a workaround, but it's like capital gains tax. They're thinking of increasing capital gains tax, and capital gains tax only applies when you actually sell something. So the theory is that if you don't sell it, you don't get subject to it, and so people will just hold on to their assets for longer. In this instance,
but they're doing
it, do you know how you can gift stuff as long as you live for 7 years? You can gift it. So would there not? Okay, it's not quite the same as that, but would there not be a financial or an accounting workaround, and where as long as you end up with farmers basically just handing over everything on the hope that they live for 7 years and you don't get subject to it?
If the gifting thing still stays in play as well.
Like, sorry, yes.
If they're going to do this, if they're going to do this, they're going to cover all the bases. I think.
Also, with the gifting thing, like, you know, you boys have been in very, good situations where your dads or parents have had a succession plan. There's a lot of farmers out there that don't want to even talk about succession and who it's going to,
true.
let alone actually gifting it to a son, and so, yeah, I mean, it might be there, but there's a huge problem in farming where succession is not planned.
Can I float a hurdle to that? Well, yeah, a hurdle to that. Do you think that some of the onus as well is on sitting down and having a mature conversation about it and laying out facts and figures of what this will cost the business if we don't do this now?
Are you talking succession, Jim? Or are you talking about inheritance?
Yeah, succession. Like, say, for example, I don't know, say you've got an asset value of, say, easy numbers. If they bring in inheritance tax, say they do it at 40%, right? Which it is on some things. And you say your business is 10 million quid, right? You sit down and have the conversation. Look, if we don't do this, this is going to cost the business £4 million for us to stand still where we are at the moment. So
I can tell you right now, Jim, I had this conversation with my dad 2 days ago. I mean, me and my dad have talked about succession to a certain extent, but not like nothing set in stone. And I said exactly this. I said, look what's happening here. Should we be kind of making, because I mean, this could make the business, like if we had to pay that, it'd be game over. There wouldn't be a business afterwards. And his response was, "I'll only be 4 years, and then the another government will be in."
That's quite a high risk strategy to play. I think if something like this did come in, I think it would force the hand of a lot of people, a lot of elderly or older generation farmers who are sitting on those assets to really wake up and smell the coffee. And I think, as you say, even if you have an asset value of £1 million and it's at 40%, even 30%, that's still 300 grand to stand still.
It's
300 grand. You go at the bank for 300 grand at 5% at the minute. The numbers tell the story. You don't need to.
I can tell you right now, if I went to the bank for 300 grand right now, they'd say, "No, Mr. Thompson, you have borrowed all the money you could possibly borrow for the next 20 years."
Do you think you'd trade in that Klasnick?
Do you think you'd walk into the bank, sit down, and think, "Oh, Mr. Thompson, welcome back. How was your Tuesday?" "Oh, it was quite good. It's now Wednesday. Back again."
It's lovely to see you for the third time this week, Mr. Thompson. But can you please stop coming in?
All you hear is ding, 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 ding. His keyboard going in overdrive, and then it goes, "Computer says no."
The good thing about Nick though, Jim, is he can go to Newton Stewart first, and then if he gets binned at Newton Stewart, he can go to Castle Douglas, and he's got options because he's equidistant.
Before we run off, just quickly off topic. So that subject, do you know that the brew? Obviously, you know of Brewdog.
Yeah.
Yes.
So there was a guy, one of the guys, guy called James Buchan, who started it, along with another guy. They used to have a small brewery in Fraserburgh. So my uncle would go in and would get all the draft. He would get all the draft for the cattle, you see, and they were go in and he would give Uncle Rolf bottles of this and bottles of that to try, like little sample bottles. Right. So it turns out his story for getting a loan for starting Brewdog in Fraserburgh, on the main street where they used to have high street banks. I'm pretty certain, don't hold me to this, but which bank it is, but he went into the Royal Bank of Scotland to try and get a loan, and they were like, no way. Went across the street into the Clydesdale and said, "This is the offer I've been given from the Royal Bank of Scotland. Do you want to match it?" And they just were like, yeah, we'll match it. But obviously, this is pre-2008 when there was no
it was a Wild West.
No worries. How much are you wanting? We'll just get the printer going in the background. You hear the laser printer.
No, I think I've heard that story as well. Like I think it's when they got the deal. Like they were tiny and they got this like £6 million contract with Tesco, and they were like, "How the fuck are we going to do this?"
Yeah.
And they were still like bottling things by hand, so they had to go and invest in a canning or a bottling line, which was like 300 grand, and they were like, "Right, okay, how are we going to do this?" So yeah, fair play to him. He's got. Nick, I'm sensing a similar thing for you here. I mean,
we've got a royal.
The lending regulations might be slightly stricter now, but I think you've got.
Well, there's a Royal Bank of Scotland on one side of Castle Douglas, and there's what used to be Bank of Scotland on the other side, and there used to be a Clydesdale at the top as well. So I'll just do my wee bank crawl up the street and see which one's going to give me money this week.
You can speak to Big Jimmy at the top of the high street. He might lend you a few quid out the back of his Nissan Skyline if you're struggling.
Just don't take your class in and park it at the front door.
It's classic salesman tactics. If the salesman's having a hard time, what do? You rock in a newer car.
Well, I mean, there's not much I can take, Jum. I can't take my pickup; it's wrecked. I can't take my
Range Rover, Nick. The Range Rover.
The quad's in the shop. I mean, what can I take? I'm just going to have to cycle in.
Holly's Range Rover's doing all right, isn't it?
Rock up.
You got a panel hanging off the side of that.
What you saying, Jum? Sandy won't let you talk. No, Sandy's just butting in like a chicken.
Hey, what?
It's like a zit that just won't. God almighty, I'll finally get it out. The joke's probably gone now, to be honest. I was going to say, just rock up, just walk in your Le Chameau wellies and your Chauffour gilet. How are we doing? Welcome. Get somebody to open the door for you. Like hire a chauffeur. Get someone to open the door for you. Look important. It's all about perception.
Take my top hat off and hang it up when I walk in.
Yeah, and then
Absolutely.
just put your don't have your arms in the sleeves of the coat. Just have them inside and get someone to come up behind you, throw your jacket off, and just stand like a human coat hanger.
Your butler named
Excuse
Barclay or something, yeah.
Who do I speak to in here to get some bloody money?
I think I'll go into all the banks now, and there'll be my mugshot behind it saying, "Do not lend this man any more money."
There'll be the emergency panic button under the counter with Nick's name on it if this man approaches.
There's this great joke that this comedian once told, and it was like this guy was like, I was walking down the street in London one day, and this gentleman approached me up an alleyway with a knife. He said, "Give me all your money." He said, "What? All of it?" The guy said, "Yeah, all of it." And he said, "What? Most of it's tied up in land. The paperwork would be a nightmare."
Yeah, I like that. I might have to tell that. That's a good one.
But I think you're right. I think you're right, Nick. Like, I think a lot of folk would have to sit down and basically just hand over their farms to the to the next generation. It would kick a lot of succession conversations into action, and I think that's one thing we as an industry are actually really bad at, is that succession piece and not handing it down sooner.
Yeah. Here's a question. Here's a question for you then. And this
Go
is
on,
me
then.
giving Labour the major benefit of the doubt. But do you think that they know that is the case in the industry, and they're trying to spark a bit of a knee-jerk reaction for people to do it? Do you think that they're actually genuinely worried about food security and they want to get a better handle on where they're going to be able to then shape agricultural policy going forward?
No,
I mean that is like far too clever for them.
I mean, if that was genuinely their plan, fair play. Like that, that is a very clever way of getting young people in a position to like move business forward, secure food security. Great idea. Do I think there's politicians in this government that are of that caliber? No.
I don't think they're thinking along those lines at all, on the basis that the core Labour voters are not from the rural countryside. They're from towns and cities across the UK. And politicians are only really concerned about one thing, and that's either getting into power or staying in power. And I think it's too far of a it's a nice thought, Jim, but it's too far of a stretch on the basis that
you say that
but then vote basis.
You say that, but then why are they still funding Ukraine? Why are they allowing arms to go to Israel? Because I bet you their voters don't want that.
True that.
Wait a minute. Nick, can you hear that?
I think Sandy must have passed out or fainted or something.
Sorry, my mic's on mute. You can see my mouth going, but just
he's burnt out the microchip in his mic. Even it's bored.
It's just see it going up in flames.
God help the listeners at this rate.
But they get the beauty of being able to switch off. We don't.
Fast forward.
Oh dear.
We've been talking about doing a little bit. We did it back in the day, Jim, but doing like listeners kind of question section, just because I feel like we should be better at being involved with people who actually follow and listen to us, and we can actually probably learn. So I've put out a thing on Instagram asking for some questions. I've actually had some good responses. And I think we should just try and make it a weekly session, and like maybe funny stories or, anything at all. So if you do have any funny stories or any questions for us, guys, please drop into our DMs on Instagram.
Our
The
MFAs.
first one, which I think we're
Or
all going to really,
TikTok,
or
or
TikTok,
YouTube.
or YouTube. Yes. Sorry.
I'm
Nice.
not a tube. You're a tube.
How long have you been waiting
Call
to
me
say
a
that?
tube.
I was just going to say, he's had that one up his sleeve for years. And he's happy
Mom,
with
I'm on
himself.
YouTube. I've made it. I'm on YouTube.
So the first question we've got, which I think is actually a really good start, I think we'll all enjoy it. It's from Brother Stone 95, and his question is to Big Jim, and it is: can we get him to list all of his big yolks, please?
List the big
Well,
yolks.
well, it depends how big you're talking, because I mean, surely it's going to be a fairly quick list, because he doesn't have anything over 300 horse, do you, Jim?
Engine-wise.
I'm sorry, I've stolen your thunder. Crack on, Jim.
Aye. Well, I've got a V12 man engine at my biogas plant. That's a fairly big rig. Putting out 790 horse. I've got a Pluger AR 4BX, which is a 4-row potato harvester, which is putting out about 440 horse. After that, we've got the New Holland, got a CR90 rotary combine, my pride and joy, which is 09. She's got a bit of a remap back in 2010. So on a nice dark night, you'll see the turbo glowing red. It's sticking out about over 530, I think 550, something like that. Which I think standard it's 410. So it'll the 9070 will, mechanics reckon that it would walk past, well, not walk, but it would go past a 9090 anyway. She's a little pocket rocket. She'll cut 45, 50 ton an hour of wheat if the going's good. Then we've got our sprayer is an Amazon Pantera. Probably Sandy makes everybody aware of.
Thanks very much.
4504.
That's 4,500 litres, 4th edition. Thanks very much.
Andy Bowler. Well done, Sandy. You can read a manual.
What on
Sandy's like that little kid you take to the oh God,
the dealer's showroom.
The dealers, and he's the one that runs around picking up the leaflets and sticks them in his little branded bag so you can go home at night and read about the work lights. These have got special limited edition LEDs front and back, and it gives a real nighttime vision glow. So it makes you feel as though you're working in the daytime, and it reduces how much you feel tired.
Jim, don't even try and land this at my door, boy. I know how much you love kit, and I know that was you as a I was going to say 7-year-old, as a 17-year-old. I know that was you, so don't even give me that. You were down John Deere and Forfar with your paper wallet, your plastic wallets, looking for all the freebies and leaflets you can get. Don't fucking pull that one on me, boy.
And then we've got.
Continue.
I think you've hit a nerve here, Jim. He's really kicked off.
Oh, he has. He's glowing red. I don't know. He's blending in with that tank behind him, and his hair and his face is blending.
That's just the hair. I was going to say.
So yeah, then we've got tractor wise. We've got a John Deere, a 7310, which is boosted to about 350 horse. I think she puts out, and that pulls the big 6 meter Limkin drill and the bed tiller, triple bed tiller at potato time. Then we've got two 6215 John Deere's. We've got a 195. We've got a 155, and yeah, that's the list of self-propelled equipment and tractors that we have horsepower wise. I don't forget the two little industrial can out about 40, 50 horse each, the little pocket rockets as well.
I don't know about you, Nick. I'm actually a bit offended that we haven't been asked to list our yokes as well. I feel quite left out here.
Sadly, I don't think I don't think your Suzuki Swift counts as a yoke.
It's Jim there.
The Skoda Yeti. That's a fair old yoke. On a serious note, though, Jim, what's your biogas engine doing? Is it turning the sort of propellers in the tank?
No, it's turning a generator that produces electricity. So on the end of the drive shaft, so the engine's sitting on a static. So the biogas plant, our biogas plant, you get two types of biogas plants. You get ones that are for upgrading the gas. So raw biogas will come off at like 52% methane. And then it's full of sulfur, CO2, and a heap of other impurities. So what they do is they scrub it up to get it to like 99% methane, and they inject it into the grid. And they usually have an engine on site as well to burn a bit of gas through it to power the site. You call that the parasitic load. So whatever the unit is using power-wise, they'll produce their own power from the gas. But ours is just straight into an engine. The biogas goes straight into an engine, and then it burns through the engine. It's like spark plugs. So it's like a petrol engine, similar to a petrol engine. Spark plugs, ignites the gas, and then on the end of the drive shaft, we've got a 500 kilowatt generator which produces power and puts it down the grid. I've had a very, very, very interesting week with the AD plant this last week. It's
interesting in a good way or a bad way?
Bad way. So week past Friday, finished lifting potatoes in the afternoon. Everything was great. 10 o'clock on Friday night, got a text message saying engine down. So went off to the AD plant. We discovered there was black. It was like a black, carbony, sludgy material had got its way into the coolant system. So the coolant system is linked to the radiators, the plate heat exchanger, and it also runs through the engine. Now, in your engine, you've got a water jacket that goes around the cylinders to cool all the cylinders to stop them cooking. So our old engine, what happened was it actually choked the whole of the water jacket system, and basically the engine cooked itself to death. So when I started to see this stuff in the system, I started to panic a lot. So I really started to go to town with, that was Saturday and Sunday, in panic mode. You know, do you switch the engine off? And when you switch the engine off, nothing's generating. So kept it running, and then decided on Tuesday morning to switch it off, with mechanics coming on Thursday. But I had to do a lot of self-diagnosis. So you had to try and figure out what was this product in the coolant system, where did it come from, and how did it get there? So I bought quite a few bits of kit off of Amazon to try and, you know, like what you can do is you call the cylinder leak down test, which will pressurize the cylinder, and that'll tell you whether you're getting air moving through the gaskets. And because of your cylinders, in your cylinder heads, where your gaskets are, that basically separates the gas from the coolant that floats around the engine to keep it cool. So then you can get gas into the coolant. So did all that, discovered that we had exhaust gas in the coolant system by doing a test on the air that was in the coolant system. Then the engineering company, now it's a V12, so that's 12 cylinders. Every head is individual and every gasket is individual to each cylinder. So it's got 12 heads, 12 gaskets. The service company only had 2 in stock. You couldn't get any more until you back order them, right? So I then had to, and they put it all on me. They put it all on me to pick which cylinders I thought was the ones with the leaking gaskets. The problem is, when you take a cylinder head off, you can't reuse that gasket.
Get it back on. No.
Well, you can't. So I had to then, by a process of elimination. But this is where it gets really interesting. So the engineers turned up, helped me changed the cylinder head gaskets, which they gave me a bit of a crash course on how to do, which I thoroughly enjoy stuff like that. But our coolant system holds 300 litres of coolant, okay? So when we drained it, and since day one, we've drained it, we've taken 300 litres of coolant out of it. The engineers who have looked after this plant for the last, 8 years, 7 years, 8 years, they're the same boys, and it's the same two guys that have been coming, turn to me and go, there should be 500 litres coming out of that. I was like, no, it's only ever 300 litres of coolant comes out. Nah, 500. I was like, well, and I showed them all the drain points. He's like, yeah, but there's the exhaust gas heat exchanger. I was like, that's never been drained in its life. So he's like, no, it has. I was like, it's not. So I crawled up on the roof of the engine, went underneath and found this valve. And I'm not joking you, I had to get a set of pipe grips and Stilsons on this little to screw off the blank cap. And I was like, well, this has not been off. This has never been off. I had to heat the ball valve inside the actual valve. I had to heat the ball valve and get some water displacement 40 in there. And
good choice, Jim.
Get the valve opened up. Then it was choked inside. So I was like, had to get wire up and unbung it. Sure as fate, 200 litres came out into an IBC, right? So, to tell you how detrimental this is, glycol in an engine will only last so long before it loses its inhibitor, which is its protective nature. So then it turns acidic, right? So when it turns acidic, it starts to form into gunk, okay? So every time we've drained that to put new glycol in it, we've been mixing 300 litres with 200 litres of dud stuff.
Absolutely shite.
And I'm literally found out about that for the first time. So we've got it all properly cleaned. We did an engine flush. We've got some fancy stuff for cleaning out water jackets and all that. And we got her going on... I came home at midnight on Thursday night just to be greeted at 12:15 until 4 o'clock in the morning with a wee lad who's teething. So, needless to say, I was all ready just to text the men at like 3 in the morning and be like, look, lads, this is what's going on today, but I'll not be in. Nah, don't worry. Got him down at 4. He was up at 6:30. I was like, oh, well, but I would have worked then. And I was literally walking around like matchsticks. I was like, oh my God. So, but like,
how often should the glycol be changed on that then? You say it's the first time in 8 years, but how often would you do it? Every 6 months?
Well, no, every 12 months, but like, it's like oil. Change it more often. Like, don't listen to it. If anyone ever tells you, oh, your vehicle, your pickup or your truck, it'll do 30,000 miles. No, they've not invented a new brand of oil. That oil loses its viscosity. We'll literally dump it after 10,000 miles. Don't listen to their nonsense. It's the cheapest mechanic you'll ever employ. And we should change this stuff after a year, but really 7-8 months, right? And some of the stuff I would imagine will have been original in the system. And even when they came to change out the old engine to put the new engine in, and I sent them samples of this stuff, they're like, oh, I don't know what that is. And if I'm being truthfully honest, I don't know if anyone's ever not used it yet, but ChatGPT is the single-handed reason that I've been able to skip hydrogen. Honestly, like, people might laugh, but well, I picked up on these guys have been using the wrong glycol in my system since day one. So because ChatGPT told me, and I told them up on it, and then all I got was, oh yeah, we actually had discussions with man last week and realized that we're using the wrong glycol.
That's convenient, isn't it?
Yeah, I know.
It's one of the many reasons that I do not own an AD plant, Nick, because I would be. You talk about being out your depth. Yeah, I'd be.
Well, I've actually been working out because you know how I'm not as into kit as you guys are.
I've never noticed, Nick.
I've been working out what my big yokes actually are. by going through photos, and then I put into Google the dates the tractors were bought. So just for Brother Stone 95, we'll just nip through my big yokes as well. So we'll start off with the class, which is an Arion. I'm pretty sure it's a 430. So that's
Big show pony.
big bit of kit. That
Big punchy horsepower.
with a forklift and a new reinstated handbrake. And then our big
Do you get a
tractor.
forklift? Do you
Not
get
a
a forklift
forklift.
with it
You
as
know
well?
what I mean? You know what I mean? Fucking.
How many tines has it got on it, Nick? That's what I want to know.
All of them.
2.5.
All of them. All of them.
He's got one sheared.
Our next big
Off to the
yoke.
side.
Our next big yoke is a Massey Ferguson 7714 S. If anyone's excited about that.
That's a
Well,
big spoozy machine. I like that,
yeah.
actually.
Yeah, it's a decent bit of kit. And then we've got, and they're both Dyna 4s, whatever the fuck that means. And then I've got a Massey Ferguson S5713. And then smaller wise, we've got an old school Massey 550. And then we've got a Class Scorpion 7045.
Oh, that's where the real money's at. Yeah.
And that doesn't have all its
like-
tines.
And it only came with you.
Just before we round
All
up,
of those vehicles were bought. All of those vehicles were bought brand new in 2013, 14, and 15. Just so you know,
they'll still be good for another 10,000 hours. Then, Nick.
The financial drain that is Nick Thompson came home in 2016, and Dad couldn't do it no more.
No, I stand by that, Nick. Those tractors will be good for another 10,000 if you look after them. Maybe change the oil every 5. You know, they'll be
no, we don't. We don't look after them.
Well, no, I'm going to finish up, and I'll list off a few of our yokes. We used to, as a kid, well, this is 25 years ago, we used to always run Massey's big show pony, top of the line Massey 390 turbo, which did, I think, about 11,500 hours, and would have gone for another 11,000 more. It was an absolute beast. Then a 390 turbo, we had a 290, an old school 165 for scraping, and then a 35X. But over time, well, we kind of stuck with the Masseys, but then as we got more contractors in, the fleet at home sort of took a bit of a nosedive, and we got rid of the 35X. Went to my uncle. He did it up and made it into. He refurbished the whole thing. It actually looks really good. The 165 went, I think to another one. There was a 54, 55 for a while. I think there was a Class Zero, the same as you, Nick, a 430. But now we've moved with the times, and we've gone a little bit off piste, and we're sitting on a McCormick MTX 120.
Oh,
which,
yuck! That's
pound for pound, probably one of the best tractors in the market. I'll put it
even for me as a stock farmer, that makes me sick.
You say that, Nick. I tell you, see, sitting in this thing, it's like sitting in that Pantera. It's it's deceptive. It's very deceptive.
You've embarrassed yourself. You've embarrassed yourself.
I know. Here's all these videos online of him judging other people's kit, and he's got a McCormick packed away.
Yeah.
There was a video I did on TikTok.
There was a video I did on talking about kit ever again, mate.
No,
if you've got that sitting at home,
I'll stand by that. That is a hill that I'll die on, Nick. That is a good tractor. I did a video on TikTok, and this, like, the McCormick was in it for like literally about a quarter of a second. It was just a glimpse in the corner, and then like literally all the comments were like, "What is that?"
Do you know, Nick, when you buy a McCormick, you get given a wee shed with a roller door, so you can park it in so that nobody sees that you've got it on the farm when they come up the road.
I tell you, see if you stick a mid deck on that, Jim, you could take it to the golf course and cut grass all day with it.
They give you the roller down door, but there's no padlock or anything on it because you're not that worried of anyone stealing it.
No, what the funny thing is, Nick? McCormick are the first tractor company to trial remote central locking doors. You're like, don't worry about it. You're all right. You're right. You're safe. I would go and sell that idea to John Deere, but you're all right. It's not worth the time.
And on that bombshell, boys, on that bombshell, I think we'll draw it to a close. Thank you all very much for listening, and we will see you again next week.
Bye.
I can't believe this has landed at my door. Off Nick Thompson, outrageous.
Imagine being up in front of court. What you getting done for it? So McCormick, the fucking judge is just laughing at you. He's just laughing. He's like, "Oh God, throw this one out." It's embarrassing.
But you say that. You laugh, Jim, but you imagine rocking up to the bank and ask for a 300 grand bank loan. I can guarantee you the boy would fall over to give it to you.
Not if you pulled up on a McCormick, you wouldn't.
No, that's right. That's the buy the McCormick company. That.